Who exactly was Mr. Harish Thawani? Where was he coming from in trying to, before he kind of, envisioned what he did in Indian cricket?
I'm a failed sportsman who turned to the off the field activity because on the field I was mediocre at best. मैंने अपने passion का पेशा बना दिया. I think I realized pretty early that it's time to turn my attention. I was fortunate that I worked in advertising, so I had a sense of understanding media, brands, advertisers, etc.
When you talk about privatization of cricket in India, it's been documented that way, that Lalit only and true game changer in terms of, and he calls himself even today architect of IPL. What are your memories of those years and Lalit as an administrator?
Success has many fathers. Failures become orphans. There was something called Champions League, you might remember.
T20.
Who was the architect?
Again, Lalit.
I'm not saying. Does he ever say on his Instagram posts or anywhere else, the architect of the failed Champions League? What is the brain of the IPL? No, I think multiple brains in the IPL. Lots of good.
You have to put a finger and point out men who made the IPL happen.
Head and shoulders above everybody else. The man who blessed it and authorized it and backed it with board money was Sharad Pawar. Insofar as designing the IPL is concerned, there's a couple of professors from the US, sports management professors, whom I indeed hired to revise it. Was it flawless? No. Is it flawless today? No. Has it improved? Yes. Has it improved in the last 10 years? Yes. Has Lalit been around in the last 10 years? No. So, I don't understand this business about I, me, my. It's 16 years since Lalit has not been involved with the IPL. It has only grown.
In the last 25 years, if I had to name some men who had the courage and the vision to change Indian cricket, who would these names be? Mr. Jagmohan Dalmia, Mr. I.S. Bindra, Sharad Pawar, Lalit Modi, N. Shrinivasan. Probably, some more names that, today's generation is not so familiar with. One of those names is our guest today at the Bombay Sport Exchange, Mr. Harish Thawani. Welcome, Harish.
Thank you, Srinivas. Quick correction. I was never a cricket administrator.
Not a cricket administrator, but a game changer.
I'm not sure about that game changer, but but thank you for the flattering introduction. There were other great administrators too, but it'll become too long a list. But you're right. You've, I think, captured the essence of the 90s and the 2000s that lay the foundation for where we are at in the cricket industry.
Harish, again, I wasn't talking about administrators, but game changers. And one name I missed probably, later post all of this.
Let me guess. Uday Shankar?
Yes.
Good. I'm glad you remembered him.
So Uday, in terms of digital broadcast, but again, that happened way later. I don't think if stories are not told, I think it'll be lost in time, and this generation or in the coming years, people are not going to know how cricket in India changed post turn of the century when it actually, kind of began to blossom. Before I get there, and there's a lot of storytelling to be done. Before I get there, I want the viewers to understand who exactly was Mr. Harish Thawani? Where was he coming from in trying to, before he kind of, envisioned what he did in Indian cricket?
Who he was, is, and will be remains the same. I'm there in front of you. So I think I best describe myself insofar as the construct of the sports industry is concerned. I'm a failed sportsman who turned to the off the field activity because on the field I was mediocre at best. So as they say, मैंने अपने passion का पेशा बना दिया. I couldn't continue on the field. I couldn't compete at the level that my batchmates were. They were hammering hundreds when I was hammering 20s. So I think I realized pretty early that it's time to turn my attention. I was fortunate that I worked in advertising, so I had a sense of understanding media, brands, advertisers, etc. And it's little known. In fact, I think it's barely known that actually we made our debut in the same World Cup that Tendulkar did. And I'm referring to Nimbus Sport.
92.
92. We actually backed the India cricket rights, the broadcast rights of the 92 Cricket World Cup. It's a little footnote in history. And if you think that later moves that we made, people went, oh my God, what are they doing? In 92, I'm recalling from memory, we paid about equivalent to $550,000. I believe the previous Cricket World Cup, which was in India, the Reliance World Cup in 87, generated a total of $64,000 from broadcast. So we effectively paid almost 10 times within one cycle. And our ROI was spectacular. It's, I think we got 3 times the revenues in our cost.
The 92.
Yeah, 300%. And there was no subscription, it was just advertising. So we had to place it on Doordarshan and sell the ads ourselves. And, we discovered then that it's the single most under-monetized asset in the country. Indians are good at monetizing land, factories in those days. And this was so under-monetized, otherwise we should not have made a 300% profit. I mean, we paid about 2 crores equivalent.
Right.
And wound up doing some 8-9 crores in sales after all costs were paid for. And I think the insight we got is that till then, the country was dependent on 4 major advertisers. If they backed you on cricket, you were successful. If they did not back you, there was MRF, there was ITC Wills,
Okay.
there was Nestle, Nescafe and its brands, a little bit of Seat, and I can't remember who the... And we said, what we're going to do is we're not going to go to these 4 or 5 because they will, strangle our throat and say, I'll pay you a penny if you want. Because they're used to paying pennies.
Okay.
If we want them to pay $1, we got to go to new advertisers.
This was also the beginning of the advent of cable television in India.
It had really not launched. It was the Iran war was on.
Okay.
So there was a little bit of CNN that you could get in India on those big dishes.
Okay.
But formal cable TV had just entered. So there was Prime Sports, who had the cable rights. Technically they didn't, but that's another long story, which is basically piracy. So we went out and picked up over 100 advertisers. We broke it down to retail. So instead of going to one guy and saying, give me 50 lakhs, I'll go to 100 guys and say, give me 5 lakhs each. Because then their power over us is less. We got spectacular rates. Everybody remembers their first innings. This was my first innings, so I remember the numbers. We were selling at the final at rates of 3 lakh rupees 10 seconds, which was not repeated till the IPL came. For 20 years.
But you were talking about a World Cup that was held in Australia.
In 92.
No, I mean
with the time zone difference. Absolutely.
There is
nobody believed it except my little team of 2 people. God bless their souls, both brilliant salespeople. The rest, as they say, could have been history, was it not for the stumbling block along the way of Indian cricket was so opaquely run that the rights sales were just... it was a mystery how anyone got the rights.
Oh, of course, I'm going to come to a lot more on that
But
front.
yeah, so that's who I was, that's who I am. And we repeated that model each time of saying, find new territories, find new customers, find new methods of selling, and it will, expand. And that's what every business does. Find new customers, find more customers, make them pay more, deliver better value, enter new geographies. Apple is a global brand, Amazon is a global brand, Toyota is a global brand, Maruti Suzuki is an Indian brand. Mahindra is almost an Indian brand, a little bit of export. They're not global giants because they're not finding new territories, new customers. And that's their business model, that's fine. Cricket travels. People say that, 85-90% of worldwide revenues, come from India in cricket. I say no, that is not true. That is because you're letting it lapse. You're letting it lapse into the situation. We handle IPL rights for a period of 4 years internationally. And in partnership with the Times Group, by the way, where Times Internet took the internet and we did the TV sales across the world. And I remember us crossing more than 20% of the total revenues through international, which is the same thing that we were able to do when we were doing the BCCI internationals.
For a generation, or probably more than just one generation, actually believes that, especially for that the crowd that grew up in the 90s and saw cricket in the 90s, the 1992 World Cup is etched in our memories. Like, it was the finest property that we remember on television. The World Cup, the quality of the game, seeing cricketers under lights on Australian pitches,
And Tendulkar's debut.
And Tendulkar's debut was spectacular. I think even the Indian team jersey of 1992 is one of the finest.
It is, yeah. It is.
I remember reading a profile of yours on yahoo.com. Okay. And it was titled, and I'll give you a broader summary of it. It was titled The Beast.
The Beast.
The Beast.
Wow.
And the gist of that piece was, we are talking about a man who is not going to stop at anything. That is how the industry, or those who were documenting your journey, began to kind of look at you as a man who is like a go-getter and wouldn't stop at anything. And again, 4 years later was edited, and how things changed for Harish, post turn of the century to 2011. So a lot of that has to come back to. But were you the beast?
All fast bowlers have a beast in them, no? I mean, I was a club level fast bowler, but at the end of the day, you have that beast mentality. I'm going to come and get you. But no, was there a beast in my methods of
the numbers, business? the purely the business of numbers.
It's a flattering term. Beasts suggest animal instincts, which is interesting. But no, I think we were so numbers driven. We had an outstanding team of people who would crunch the numbers alongside me, and we seldom got them wrong. Very, very, very seldom. Most of our winning bids, but I'll backspace a little bit, because we again, if the storyline of cricket's monetization has to be sequenced, the next big leap came in '99, which is again something that people have forgotten, because we're so obsessed with Indian cricket that we've forgotten the '92 episode of the Australian Cricket Board monetizing the rights well. Yes, my company bought them, but they knew how to sell them. And eventually the person who sold it to me, Seamus O'Brien, used to work for CSI, became my partner. So we joined hands in '99 when the ICC was tendering their rights for a 8-year cycle.
Right.
The 2000 to 2007 cycle. I think it's fair to say we had a nickel and dime in our pockets, but we had the beast in us. So we went out and bid, and Dalmia was in the chair. Dalmia wasn't fond of me, to put it mildly, and I don't blame him. Sometimes my mother's not fond of me. I'm too outspoken. But whatever his reasons were, God bless his soul, he was publicly known he wasn't fond of me, to the extent that he would have public outbursts at me in meetings. He just couldn't stand being in the same room as I. So Dalmia was in the chair of the ICC, and everybody said, you all have no chance, because he's going to make sure he disqualifies you all. But by then, the Australian and New Zealand Cricket Board and others whom I had dealt with in the past had realized that India is the future, and the money's got to come out of India. And this man...
Which year? When was this?
Well, '92 is when that journey began, because we paid top dollar, we paid on time, we did a good job. Then we did the Singer Four Nations Cup in Sri Lanka, which is, again, those four nations were impressed with what we did. And then we did several other smaller things, something in Sharjah, etc. But we kept ourselves on the radar of the other cricket boards, and they were like, no, we want to hear what these two monkeys have to say. Me and Seamus, my partner, we formed a consortium. And our bid was very, very good. There's an unbelievably eerie side story on that. Our bid in round one was $432 million. So if you see all Nimbus's bids, they all add up to 9, all.
Oh, is it? Okay.
So 432 is equal to 9.
Okay.
612 in 2006 equal to 9.
A superstition?
It's just a numerological thing. Maybe superstition, maybe not. 9 is my lucky number, so we said let's go with 9. So it takes a decimal point to move here.
Yeah.
So we went with 432 and we finished number 1. And guess who was number 2? Z. And guess what the number was? 431.
Okay.
And Subhash, till date, thinks that I had a spy in his company. And I guess, Subhash, if I had a spy in your company, would I be so foolish to be just $1 million ahead of you? I would put a gap of 5, 6, because at 400 it makes no difference whether I add another $5 million. He says, nahi, yaar. Ab to mujhe batao, that era is gone. Who was it? I said, nobody. It's a fluke. And number 3, I think, finished was TWI. which is owned
Okay.
by IMG.
Transworld International,
Yeah.
yes.
But so 432 was a spectacular number in 99, and the Indian media didn't cover it much because the bids were happening in Paris.
I don't
And
think Indian media for the
no, it did.
longest
It
time.
eventually, no, for the long, when the bids were announced, finally it covered.
Okay.
I have a clipping of that. Headline news in the Times of India, front
Okay.
page, and ET too. Because there was no internet. There was
Yes.
mobile phones had just about come. So,
Yes.
it was a little difficult to, and nobody wanted to send journalists from here at Paris, expensive, no? So they did a short list of three. ESPN lost out. ESPN Star Sports lost out. They didn't get shortlisted. And 6, 7 other companies. And so they made a short list of three and said, we'll have a round two after a month or whatever. And we didn't have the money. We had people promising the money, but we didn't have the money. And, so News Corp approached us to say that we'll back you.
Okay.
In subsequent rounds, we realized. So it became a World Sport Group Nimbus consortium backed by News Corp. And there was this vehicle form called GCC, Global Cricket Corporation. And the politics in between that month, I think it was around March and June when the final bids were submitted and presentations were made, was insane, ferocious. I mean, I have not seen so much dirtiness in the world of cricket at that level ever. There's probably still there, but that was crazy. And eventually we won the bid at 550. And Subhash bid 666 and lost.
Okay.
Well, I think he didn't understand the significance of 666, what that number means in the Catholic world or the Western world. And I think his anxiety to win it, the ICC board took the decision that we'd rather have the financial security of News Corp than the insecurity of dealing.
The television wars of the late 90s and the early 2000s was something else.
Something else.
So what was it? Is it that Indian media industry, television industry was just about waking up to see what kind of a cash cow cricket was beginning to
I'm not even
become?
sure the industry had woken up. We'd woken up. Obviously, ESPN Stars hadn't woken up because otherwise they wouldn't have finished 6th or 7th in that bid. They were being hyper conservative. There was no other sports broadcaster. We were not a broadcaster, we were a sports agency.
Yes.
Good at distributing rights, good at selling advertising, but we're not a broadcaster yet. Sony was not a broadcaster. They hadn't even begun doing cricket. Eventually, we won. And, that is actually, if you ask me, the defining moment of world cricket in terms of revenues, because $550 million, the 99 Cricket World Cup in England had grossed about $30 million.
Okay.
Of course, these were 2 World Cups and 3 Champions Trophies packages. So it's about 4
Champions
times.
Trophy, which was the 2001 in Nairobi.
So in 2000, it was called Knockout, which is a name only with Dalmia could have come up with. I mean, what is knockout about cricket? I don't understand. And I remember having a massive argument with the ICC board that we are coughing up $550 million. We'd like to rebrand this tournament. I mean, and that was the first tournament under that contract. And because Dalmia was the chair. No. Okay. I remember telling Jaguda, I said, you'll be gone next month. Your term ends. And I will get this changed because I can see it in the eyes of all the Goras that they understand what I'm saying, that branding is key. You can't call a cricket match a knockout, Anyway, we did knockout. Then Malcolm Gray became chair. We went to him. So Malcolm, you were there. He says, yeah, I understand. What do you need? I said, I'd rather call it Champions Cup. Finally, we settled on Champions Trophy because he liked that idea of trophy more, and it wasn't much of a compromise. So that's how it became Champions Trophy. And ask any consumer today which sounds better, and everyone will say, yeah, of course, Champions Trophy is a better name than ICC Knockout. So I'm sorry, I don't agree with people who say that the true commercial evangelist of cricket was Jagmohan Dalmia. He was a great administrator, backed his players. One must give credit where he always backed his players.
Saurav Ganguly.
And others, Sehwag later on, when the controversy happened in South Africa, even though Sehwag was wrong, but he still backed his players, which is, one thing you must have. He backed the people whom he liked. Okay, he was very strong on his pluses and minuses, but Was he the commercial evangelist that some people believe? I mean, history will.
You talk about some wonderful numbers that were registered from a broadcast perspective, but again, these were all ICC tournament. And again, you mentioned the Champions Trophy, the
Yeah.
92, 99, and the subsequent Champions Trophy.
Yeah.
And this was also at a time subsequently when the Indian cricket ecosystem parallelly was again growing. I mean,
Yeah.
Sachin Tendulkar had arrived and cricket in India had
Everything
taken off.
was right.
So why wasn't Indian cricket monetizing?
Because it was opaque. There was no. I mean, I went when Dungarpur became president. I went to meet Rajbhai at the CCI, saying you have a meeting with this working committee, which used to be called in those days. We'd like to submit an offer because there's no public announcement on a
This was
tender.
which year?
I think 2000.
Okay.
Thereabouts.
So the 90s had all vanished into nothingness.
The 90s just went off. They did the initial deal with ESPN, which then became ESPN Star Sports in 93 for a 5-year period. Then in 98, 99, they should have been auctioning the rights in a proper process, and they didn't do it. I think they did some interim deal with Doordarshan, if I'm not mistaken, or they extended for 1 year with ESPN Star. I don't remember. So around 99, 2000 is when I went to Dungarpur. You can check the records when Dungarpur became president. And I said, Rajbhai, we are willing to make, and in those days, ESPN Star Sports for the previous 5 years, to the best of my recollection, had paid something in the region of 120 crores or thereabouts, plus the cost of production. So we did a number and said, we are comfortable paying 450 crores. And so we tabled that offer with a banker's letter offering a complete guarantee on that. So, payment is secure. Our track record was good. Rajbhai said, okay, I'll table it, which he did, I'm told. And then the Dalmia said, we don't want to deal with him.
Because he had his favorites or what?
He had his favorites, which was Mark Mascarenhas. Everybody knows that. And Mark was a good guy. He did a pretty good job, but Mark wasn't a sports agency or broadcast. He was a one-man deal maker. And Tendulkar's, of which he did a great job, by the way, managing Tendulkar.
Yes.
Credit where it's due. So Rajbhai came back and said, whatever, didn't happen. And Indian cricket just didn't get the monies it deserved. It just did not. And then that ferocious war broke out thereafter when they came out with, I think in 2001 or 2, they came out with a tender. Subhash then decided to partner with me. We signed we did a formal agreement to launch a sports network together. By then, remember, we controlled the ICC rights too. So, we were somewhat grown-up boys, so to speak. And we entered into a formal agreement. We started work on launching the channel and make this bid. The bid went in Z's name because they were the qualified broadcaster, so to speak. And by then, Subhash and Jaguda had a falling out. Remember, in the ICC bid, Jagu backed Subhash to the hilt. The vote went 9-1. 9 for us.
World Cup.
No, the 2007.
Achha, okay.
The board vote was 9-1. 9 in our favor, 2 in Ehsan and Jagu voted for Z. 1 abstention, Bangladesh. They were told, if you want your test nation status, you abstain or whatever. Some people say, no, actually they voted for you. Sri Lanka abstained, but I don't know what the truth is. But it was an overwhelming vote in our favor. I don't know what happened between Jagu and Subhash thereafter. Some say, Subhash lost his shirt at Jagu and gave him grief and saying, you had promised me.
If I remember correctly, there were criminal charges.
Just later. I mean, I was in
2004.
Yeah, so 2002 or thereabout is when the rights bid for Indian cricket, the tender was issued, and Z finished on top. And that bid was masterminded by me, Yannick, my great colleague, a couple of other, Raju, Udupa, Sunil Mahajan, great sales guys. We did all the numbers. Himanshu, who used to work with Subhash, very good chap.
Modi.
Himanshu Modi. Then went to the Times Group and now he's gone somewhere else. Very good guy with his numbers. And we were hands down the number one. $275 million. They're about 250, I don't remember. And Srini was treasurer.
He had just come into the BCCI in Srinivasan.
Yeah. He's either treasurer or he was commercial committee or finance committee chairperson or whatever. So he issued the letter of intent to Z. And Z paid some, whatever, initial signing amount or whatever. Contract was yet to be signed. And then Subhash Jagu said, no, nothing doing.
Why? Never come out.
I don't owe you an explanation. I own Indian cricket. And then it went to court. And for 2 years it was in court. And out of spite, Jagu gave interim rights to Doordarshan for a fraction of the price. And Doordarshan eventually came to us to saying, sell the advertising for us. So here I am selling advertising on a network which is paying some 30 crores a series to, what's his name? BCCI. And where we have a bid in with Z where we're willing to pay 100 crores a series. So I'm like, I'm in every one of these rooms and I'm wondering what depraved logic drives somebody in the BCCI to deny Z the rights. And it got fought and fought and fought and he just got stuck.
And it is also
So for 3 years, Doordarshan carried the Indian cricket.
And Sony entered the fray.
No, not in Indian cricket. So Sony had entered the fray. We sold them. We had also backed the Sri Lanka cricket rights, World Sport Group members. By then we formed a joint venture. So we sold them the India rights. So Sony Max, that's how they entered cricket.
Okay.
And then when we ran the process for the ICC rights for the Indian marketplace, you know, to be fair to Kunal, evangelist, saw it coming, sat with me and said, how much do you want? So, you know, if I get X, I think the figure was 250 million for just satellite rights. If I get X, I'll do the deal now. And I don't have to run a public tender because this is privately owned. And in my budgets, I've taken the approval from News Corp. So I know if I get 250, I can sign it.
Right.
If it's less, I'll go through a process. He got his board to approve some 200, 210. So we went through a process. We asked Z whether they wanted. We asked ESPN. So everybody made offers. Eventually, Sony upped their offer. I think 225. We closed it. That's how they got into big time cricket and did very well with it. So that was Kunal's first big bold call on big money. His board backed him. Complex transaction, but we pulled it off successfully. And there was, just remember, only satellite rights. Separately, we had a deal with Doordarshan for terrestrial. And it was a hugely successful venture for everybody. Everybody went home feeling happy. Broadcasters happy, sponsors, you know, we took sponsorship values to 12 times what they used to be. Pepsi paid, you know, between Pepsi, LG, what is now Vodafone was called Hutch in those days, and Hero Honda, which is now called Hero Motocorp, and 4 other official sponsors, South African Airways, Carlsberg, etc., etc. We topped $150 million sponsorship mark on 2 World Cups. And yes, that was the reaction then by people like, man, are you crazy? How? So how? By demonstrating value and by delivering value. Nobody comes to sponsor repeatedly unless you demonstrate and deliver value. So, and by running smart marketing processes. You got to talk to everybody, you know, and see who's willing to pay what.
I'm sure, you know, this is the time when you began to acquire that nickname of yours. But before I come to that, so to the viewers,
no, I love. Make no mistake, I love that nickname that you're giving me. But pick up the phone and talk to any of the 800 advertisers who dealt with us in my 25 years over there. And if one of them say we didn't deliver.
Of course, you wouldn't stay in the business
if one of them, and I'm not even saying 5%, if 1 out of 800 says, "Yeah, they didn't deliver the value," never.
Fair enough.
If we felt they were aggrieved, if they didn't get the right value, we'll give them bonus spots, like you have in print also. I'll give you bonus spots. I don't want to lose you as a customer. You're unhappy, I'll make you happy.
Understood.
Okay, and that's how it worked. Then that whole TV war between Dalmia, Subhash, me on the sort of, you know, in the side room, Doordarshan, that ended only when the elections took place and Pawar came into.
This is 2006.
Yeah, well, on a second attempt.
That I'll come
to. Let's go back.
You know, but before I go any further, you know, this is for the viewers, an FYI, when he says Subhash is Subhash Chandra, Z-Tel
Subhash Chandra, yeah.
Jagu's Jagmohan Dalmia, you know, you spoke about Kunal Dasgupta, the CEO of Sony during those years, you know, just so that you'll get the names right. Which brings me to, again, what you just mentioned, you know, Sharad Pawar winning the BCCI elections. I remember attending a press conference in 2006. You and Lalit Modi addressed it. This is when Nimbus won the rights for Indian cricket
Right.
for 4 years, 612 million.
Right.
It was around at that time at the exchange
2,700
value
crores.
2,700 CR. And I remember being in that room when those figures were being announced, and we were all in awe. Those numbers were never heard of. 612 million for a 4-year right cycle of Indian cricket. Those numbers, you and Lalit on stage, and I remember very clearly remember you all, Lalit talking about the need to rebrand domestic cricket in India. Ranji Trophy, I heard kind of there was a need to rebrand the Ranji Trophy. It was almost like freshness all around, and new things happening. What
Yeah.
was that like? And that's when you kind of got that reputation of the man who was willing to, who had the courage to take big bets.
Well, we've done that multiple
Of
times
course,
already.
but in India, it
Yeah,
was
because it was the
making a
first
splash.
opportunity. In India, they'd never opened the doors.
Unfortunately, it took this long.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. When people say, oh, so and so and so and so and so and so did the great things for taking Indian cricket's commerce to the next level, I say, I'm sorry, no. Indian cricket's commerce went to the next level when Pawar took the seat in the BCCI, and I knew him socially from before and professionally too, and he, convened a meeting of everybody who dealt with Indian cricket, lots of small agents, big agencies, everybody, and said, you know what, we want to run a clean administration, okay, and I love cricket, and I will form a good team around us, and if anybody has a problem with anybody's not giving you a patient hearing, come to me. And he actually had his OSD, DK Singh, I remember.
This was after he took over as the president.
Yeah. He had his OSD with him. He said, take DK's number. DK will take anyone's call if you have a problem. Okay, let's make Indian cricket go forward on the field, off the field together, everybody. He formed his committees. And I had a separate one-on-one with him. And he said, what should we be doing? Because I think he trusted me for being a sort of sportsman first and a sports businessman second. I said, we need to pay our Ranji players better, and we need to televise them. We need to give them faces. We need to give them motivation. She said, who will do it? I said, I'll do it. If I win the rights, I'll do it. I'll produce the cricket. I will air it also.
Which is when Ranji Trophy matches started getting produced.
Correct. I remember launching the first Mumbai game with Milind Rege as commentator. Mumbai's quintessential Mumbai cricketer. And he said, great, let's do it. And we did. We used to do, I think, 15 to 18 matches, Ranji matches a season. Till date, I meet people who never played Test cricket, play Ranji cricket, and they come say, Harish bhai, thank you. It was, our families could see it, our mohallas could see it, and it got them jobs, it got them sponsors, and it got them more money from the
visibility.
And visibility. So I think 2006 was the turning point in terms of the newfound transparency that came into the BCCI. Then in the process, you were there. I remember there was a big screen, all the bidders, all the media, everybody was called. The envelopes were being opened one by one, and the numbers were punched in so everybody could see it. What people don't know is what happened the previous night. Let sleeping dogs lie.
No.
Somebody, I won't name the person. Okay, somebody went to Lalit's house. You know why the bid opening was at JW Marriott? You remember it was a JW Marriott?
Yes, but I don't remember why.
Because it's the closest hotel to Lalit's house.
Okay, the Juhu bungalow.
The Juhu bungalow.
Yeah.
And Lalit didn't want to make the trek to Taj Lands and Taj Kulab. So he told Pawar, let's do it at JW Marriott. Because he was that commercial committee's convener or whatever. Okay. He, Shini, Bindra, 4-5 people were in the committee. Somebody went to Lalit's house in the middle of the night. I remember I live in Bandra, so I didn't have to, but I was entertaining some overseas guests. So we were at some rooftop restaurant in Juhu till 1 o'clock in the night.
Okay.
And at 1 o'clock, I get a call from Lalit saying, guess who's here in my house? Okay, I guessed right. I won't say who it is, but somebody participating in the bid went to him with 2 envelopes and said, I'm going to give you 2 envelopes. Okay, 2 additional envelopes. One had officially gone in. So he says, that's my medium number. Okay, this is my high number, this is my low number. And, you open our bid last. And depending on what's the winning number, you open my low, high or medium number, and I will look after you.
You must tell us who this was.
So no, it's not a difficult guess. Lalitu call up, what do I do? I said, call up Pawar right away, report it. You've had an illicit approach. You must report it immediately. He'll be sleeping. I said, fine. Then send him. I think there was no WhatsApp then. There was SMS only, or maybe there was. Then send him a text message saying, I've been approached by so and so in an illicit manner. I just want to put it on record. Cover your ass, because tomorrow this guy will say that you approached him. Anyway,
Was the due diligence taken care of?
which duty?
Was the due diligence done in terms of
So
reporting it?
He called Pawar.
Okay.
And then he called me back and said, Pawar said, ignore it. So they ignored it. Nobody complained, nothing. It never became public. And that company lost out anyway. So it didn't matter. Lost out is when that whole ICL revenge happened. And, I need to rewind. In that $275 million bid that Z had made, in which we were partnering with them, which Jagu threw out and said, we're not going to do it, I had added a $25 million bonus to be sanctioned the right to stage a private league. Subhash doesn't understand sport, as you must be knowing. I mean, he doesn't understand sport at all. He won't know the difference between a Chinaman and a Korean.
He was very clear that it is for advertising.
मतलब कुछ नहीं आता है.
Okay.
Zero. I mean, absolutely nothing. Now maybe he does. I mean, years and years of some exposure. But at that time he was like, he
Any which ways, Himanshu handled the cricket business.
Yeah. I mean, Himanshu is not a sports person. I mean, sports is either in your DNA or it's not. If it's not in your DNA, I mean, don't work in the sports industry. So I explained to Subhash. I said, we should create a private league, but we don't have a sanction for it. We'll run into trouble. So let's pay them a premium for sanction. That bid that went in 2002, 3, whatever, with that got fought over in the courts.
The first one.
First and only one. In the era. There was that he understood the concept. A private league can be commercially monetized. So when he didn't get the rights from either the Dalmia regime or he lost out in this tender, he decided that he's going to go and create that league.
What was this league? Like which format? 50 over format? Or
so here's the other interesting spin one. We'll come to that to that shortly. So we had invented a 25 over format.
25 over.
Well, invented means we designed one. 25 overs a side.
T20 was never even like
T20 hadn't come in 2004. Yeah. So in our minds, we would do a 25 over league, and the playoffs would be 2 innings or 25 overs each, which is eventually what Tendulkar suggested we should do.
Okay.
So all the playoffs, semis and finals, well, we were calling it semis and finals, not playoffs, would be 2 innings or 25 overs each. So in a sense, it had the best of what became T20, and it had the best of and negated that toss and dew advantages, which Tendulkar later on, I think, more brilliantly explained. We didn't think that deep. He's the one who, Subhash decided to go and launch ICL, and he took one of my boys, Ajay Kapoor, to sort of be the tournament director or whatever, who had seconded into a joint venture. By the way, he never honored the joint venture agreement, so it didn't happen.
Right.
Till such time as we launched Z Sports. Because the bidder was Z Sports. So we'd already launched Z Sports. I'd sent my whole team, James, Ajay, etc. We used to all sit in Noida, etc. And he would keep saying, yeah, we'll transfer the 26% shareholding to you and we'll rebrand it. And I have to take board approval. Yeah, 2 din ruk jao, 4 din ruk jao. 2 saal ruka, mein kuch nahi hua. So finally in 2006, I went for the bid with our own, but by then we'd been backed by very serious private equity. So we picked up a couple of 100 crores in investments and we had cash, so we didn't need Z as a partner. And I remember after we won the bid, then Himanshu called me and said, Subhashji wants to meet. I said, ab to milega hi na wo. 2 saal se rakh raha hai mere ko. Now he wants to meet, but he's senior to me, age-wise, wealth-wise, everything. I'll meet him. So we went to his house in Cuff Parade. And he says, so how do we proceed? I said, no, I'll still honor the agreement.
Achha.
Okay, one condition. Instead of 26%, now I want 49%. Because I've got the money and I've got the rights. So he said, no, I have something else in mind. Anyway, it's one of those convoluted ideas that he had. This is the second time, by the way, that he messed up. Because when News Corp, and this is it's very interesting, in 2000, when News Corp backed us, Ian Frickberg was Rupert Murdoch's man. He was having lunch with Seamus in the same restaurant in Paris that I was having lunch with Jindal, who was the ZMD.
Okay.
You remember Jindal? Ex-Times of India Group
director.
I forget his first name. He was a real beast, by the way.
Okay.
Bull in a china shop. And I was having lunch with Jindal and I was saying, listen, somebody's going to back us. You're going to lose. You're already number two. These guys are going to make us fight against each other. 423 will become 523. You know what? हम लोग बैठ जाते हैं. Because we are an agency, production house, and distributor. We're not a broadcaster. You're a broadcaster. And we're a sponsorship sales agency and event management agency. These five verticals we'll handle. You handle the broadcasting. Let's combine our bids. Let's stop fighting because the next bidder is $100 million behind. He's not going to be able to compete with us. He says, नहीं मेरे को सुभाष जी ने कहा है कि even if I have to go to $1 billion, हम तो इसको ले ही जाएंगे. That time they had a $16 billion market cap. That Ketan Parekh KP30 stocks and everybody's head was in the clouds. I says, General, think 10 times before you, because over there lunch is being had by somebody who's your big daddy as a news cop, and my partner will conclude the deal. But we see you as a bigger threat because you're a competitor. No. I said, call Subhash, take instructions. No, I have my instructions. After they lost out, then Satish Menon came to me, who was my ex-colleague, by the way. Subsequently, he became my colleague. Saying Subhash wants to meet. Same thing. At that time, he used to have an office in the Oberoi,
Okay.
a suite on the top floor.
Okay.
We went there. He smoked BDs. I used to bum BDs from him.
He used to still smoke BDs.
He used to still smoke BDs. I used to bum BDs from him. So I said, BD pite. So he says, I'll pay you $25 million to walk away.
Smoking a BD and saying, I'll pay you $25 million.
Before the final bids went in. So I said, you know what? It's not in my hands anymore. We've signed a deal with News Corp. I can't let down my partners. Without you, they're nothing. India to tum la rahe ho na. I said, that may be true, but my integrity and my entire future. Okay, I'll give you $50 million one shot check. That should be enough to cover your entire future income.
Oh.
$50 million. In those days, the dollar was 40 rupees or so. That's 200 crores in those days. So I said, you know what? I won't behave like Jindal and give you an answer without consulting my partner. So give me half an hour. I'll talk to Seamus. I told Seamus, there's $50 million on the table. What do you want to do? He said, we've signed a deal with News Corp. I tell News Corp, we'll split it 3 ways. उनको भी 17 दे देंगे. सब भाग जाते हैं. लेने दो जी को इधर. So he said, no, I don't think that's right. They backed us for strategic reasons, not because they love our faces. I said, I'm with you, no problem. He said, no. Subhash lost. So this is, that's why later he came to me for the joint venture. In 2002.
Huh.
And then in 2002 to 2004, Latka us, and then we won the rights. Then he comes back. I don't know what's up with this guy? He knows I'm 10x better than him at sports. I know that he's 10x better than me at broadcasting, distribution, etc. Which is why we got joint hands together. Why does he have to mess people over and then come back crying and saying, let's do it? And he tells the whole world, Harish.
What drove Subhash Chandra?
What drove Subhash Chandra in sports? No, I think it was a business decision that he was good in fiction. ZTV was a great force. They had Z Cinema, which was doing very well. Some of the regional networks were doing well. Z Business, I think, had begun to sort of find its feet. He just wanted to be in sports to complete the network offering.
And it was an advertiser's market.
Yeah, it wasn't. I mean, there was no particular passion for sport. So that's how we lost out, and then launched ICL, which, frankly, I mean, people say IPL got launched because of ICL. That's not true.
I'll come to the IPL later. I'll come to the IPL. I remember hearing stories of 2004, the friendship series with Pakistan, the historic tour in 2004. I remember stories of how you arranged a junket for BCCI members and their families to fly there. Is there any truth to that?
No, I wish it was. I mean, it might have been an interesting junket now that probably no such thing can ever happen again. I think 2004, when the Bajpayee had started making peace moves, I think India's tour to Pakistan after a long time.
Oh yeah, but 99 we were there and for a while.
Yeah, so it was for a long time.
Yeah, of course.
Was it 2004? Was it 2005?
No, 2004.
2004.
We came back from Australia.
Yeah.
And then we headed there.
Dravid was captain.
Yes, but Ganguly went on the tour.
No, hang on. Which was the tour that took place after Pawar became president? Did we go to Pakistan again?
No, that was in 2006.
So 2006. So no, 2004, I don't remember anyone coming.
Okay.
2006, there were lots of trips up and down.
This was the second tour of Pakistan.
So 2004, I know because we had a separate contract with the Pakistan Cricket Board in those days for sponsorship and I think mobile rights and on ground signage and stuff like that, not for the TV part. So yeah, we would have to go up and down to handle the business. Now I'm a little confused. Which tour did there was a tour that Pawar organized an expedition. Pawar and his wife came along with three of his very good friends. I remember that the Choradia uncle, Shambhaji Bhosle was a colonel in the army, and Vittal Maniyar, and their wives. So
Okay.
that was his junk. It wasn't mine.
So this must have been 2006 because that's when he took
I
over
think
as
it
the
was in
president of
2006, and that was Lahore only.
Lahore. Okay, yeah.
So these.
So the first test was in Lahore.
And the other guys were around. There was Anurag Thakur on. I mean, he was a board official. They came
Yeah.
on their own. Kiran More, I think, was chairman selectors. Was he chairman selectors? No, he was no longer chairman selectors.
He just stepped down, or he still was, I think, because
Maybe he
this was
still
the Greg
was.
Chappell time. Kiran More was the chairman of selectors.
So I remember this Khao Gali in Lahore.
Anarkali.
I don't know what. I mean, and
Anarkali.
I'm
It's a
vegetarian.
very famous.
Yeah, so it's great for guys who eat non-veg.
Yeah,
But for us vegetarian, we get only two things over there.
Yeah.
We get dal and we get palak.
Yeah, vegetarians in Pakistan can actually.
Yeah, so I remember Anurag and I and Kiran More going off, and they were like feasting themselves. Anyway, yeah, Pawar staged, but it wasn't a board junket.
Acha.
Pawar organized it. Somebody's plane. I took a ride on it. So in fact, if it's anything else, he organized the junket. I got a free.
Okay.
Some industrialist had loaned his plane
Okay.
for it. So I remember Lalit came on the plane also.
Okay.
There was 2006, 2004. So there was an interesting. There's a cricket backstory to that. I think Ganguly got dropped.
Yes.
And Dravid
But
was
not then. Ganguly got dropped in a tri-series in 2005 on the tour to Sri Lanka.
Correct. So he didn't
And
get
from
picked.
there on,
Let's say he didn't get picked for the
yes,
Pakistan tour.
He then was playing domestic cricket and all. On the tour of Pakistan in 2006, he made a comeback. He played that.
So this is what I've heard, and I wasn't in the room, so I don't know. I have heard that Buddhadev Dasgupta was then CM of Bengal, called Pawar on that Pakistan tour after Ganguly didn't get picked and said, pride of Bengal, how can you do this? And Pawar is great at maintaining relationships, and it's easy. He's a I do you a favor, you do me a favor type, and he keeps them in a note in his pocket.
Yes,
I
yes.
think so. The rumor is that he got that call and he said, Buddhadev, okay, I'll see what I can do. And he talked Dravid into letting Ganguly, and I think Ganguly joined the tour halfway through. I think, I'm not sure.
Okay.
But this is just a side story. I wasn't in the room, so I can't verify this, but reliable sources, as they say, told me this. So interesting parts in going on in the world of cricket. I mean, how did Dinesh Mongia get picked for 2003? So they're always interesting anecdotes. More can tell you more. Sandeep Patil can tell you some very interesting ones, juicy ones.
Yes, but to be fair to Saurav Ganguly, he also did his part in kind of working towards that comeback. He played domestic cricket. I remember
Saurav Ganguly, one of the greatest of all time. Okay, for the first Indian captain to put that sense of belief into our teams that we can win overseas. B, we can give equal amount of aggression back, and a player's captain.
Players captain.
Complicated
totally
human being.
captain.
Complicated human being. We all know that. I worked closely with him. My international debut as a producer, 2000 knockout, was his debut as a captain.
Okay.
Sorry, More was chairman selectors then.
Yes.
Nairobi. I remember
More dropped Ganguly.
Eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I remember then, in Nairobi, and same non-veg problem. They used to go to a restaurant called Carnivore. 4,000 4,000 kinds of meat, only 4 vegetables.
I have heard stories.
हाँ यार, मेरे को यार वो side के table पे बिठा दो कुत्ते जैसे मैं खा लूँगा यार तुम लोग पागल. And they used to bring the meats and slice them.
Yes.
On the table.
Saurav is a known carnivore,
Yeah, obviously. So is More.
True blue Bengali.
Yeah. So so there was no junket. There was, I think, friends and family of Pawar that he thought will go. I think he was minister then. Yeah, he was. He was agriculture minister.
Yeah, he was minister. Yeah.
Correct. So it was like a state visit, as in I think there was protocol followed and stuff like that. But yeah, so sorry, no juicy stories.
No, actually, Saurav, I mean, great that you brought that thing out, a player's captain, In fact, I have had multiple run-ins with Saurav, when he was the captain cricketer and then later as he turned the administrator. People have always asked me that why do I have a problem with Saurav Ganguly? I said, I don't have a problem with Saurav the cricketer. As a captain, he was one of the greatest this country has ever seen. But when you step into administration, then you are as good as any other politician, is what I...
Is he still in administration?
No, but he was the BCCI president.
We had a separate company, Neo Sports, which acted as a broadcaster, whose sources of revenue operate from subscription revenue and advertising. Advertising in the peak of the news, sports advertising was 70-75% of the revenues.
What do you make of today's broadcast industry? What do you like of Lalit?
Lots of good qualities. He's generous. You go out to lunch with him, he will always want to pay the bill. He's loyal to all his friends who don't threaten him. Whom he doesn't feel threatened by.
He doesn't feel threatened by, okay.
Other people say that, Lalit has a clinical condition. I've seen one violent outburst of his in Abu Dhabi where he nearly got killed by the Abu Dhabi Royal Guard.
Oh God.